Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Before I start, can I ask all of you a question? How many of you remember where do you put your back door grill key? Put out the hand. That's not bad. Thank you. You are safe from fire, I assure you. Now, if you cannot remember where do you put your back door grill and your lock and your padlock key, go home tonight and start looking for it. It might save your family's life. I know some of you keep it so safe, and you start to move your cabinets around, and then eventually, I can tell you, during a fire, you cannot locate the key. So even though you have a back door as an alternate escape door, you can't open it. One other advice is you might put the whole bunch together with the whole house key. During a fire, under panic condition, I guarantee you cannot select the right key. Separate the back door key, put it in a special key ring holder, and hang it somewhere near the back door. Not only that, remember your locks that's been there for probably ages might not open at all because of rust. So sometimes when you're free, try to open it. If it is rusty, oil it. All right? Now, what I'm going to share with you is actually a disaster that happened about 5 years ago, but the impact is still resonated throughout the whole construction industry in the UK. Because this actually woke up everybody and shook up, including the UK government. Through this particular disaster, there's a court proceeding. First of all, there is actually an investigation, a study that's been conducted. And my God, it opens up a can of worms. I will share with you the lady, Judith Hackett, was asked to actually conduct an investigation. And actually, we found at the end, a lot of professionals found at the end, can fire disaster be prevented? Answer definitely is yes. Provided all construction stakeholders carry out their duty diligently. That means everybody, from the government down to the professionals, down to the AHJ, down to the manufacturers, suppliers, contractors, and the like. Everybody carry out their duty diligently, with competency. I'm not saying that fire will never happen. Murphy's Law, you can never stop a fire from happening. The question is, are you ready to handle one? Are you prepared to handle one? Or are you ready to actually try to minimize the risk that a fire can happen? If not, don't ever think that Grenfell Tower can only happen in UK. Okay? Now, if you look back in Malaysia history, we never have a major fire with high fatality rate for past 20 years. And a lot of what I call stakeholders are assuming that we will never have a fire. I think if you are familiar with statistics, you find that that statement doesn't hold water. Right? Probability. If you understand statistics and probability, if you do not have a fire in the last 20 years with high fatality rate, we are actually getting very close to one. Okay? Grenfell Tower has just eclipsed its 5th anniversary. But the court proceeding is still going on for 3 years. They divided in 3 phases. All right? First one is to investigate what happened during that night. Second one, they are looking at interviewing all the stakeholders or whoever, any party that is connected to the case, will have to testify in court. Cross-examined by the lawyers. And then now they're actually interviewing all the victims. The court proceeding has run into 83 weeks and it's still ongoing. And if you got time, you can go in and actually listen to some of the proceedings. And it's very, very interesting. You find a lot of facts, all right? And a lot of wrongdoings and a lot of faults, a lot of flaws, even in the entire legislative system and the structure. Hopefully, you can learn from this disaster and try to minimize the risk of a major disaster in Malaysia. We always say, do not go through the experience, the painful experience. Try to learn from other people's experience. And then we can then look forward and progress with lesser pain and suffering. So what went wrong is being reviewed during the court proceedings, and it's so interesting, including ex-ministers admitted they did not do something correctly. And Grenfell Tower posed the highest fertility rate after the Second World War. Just imagine. We used to look towards UK as a model. But after the fire, do you know that UK Ministry of Housing actually looked outwards towards 3 Commonwealth countries to have a better understanding of what are these countries doing in terms of fire safety policy and practice. And they picked 3 Commonwealth countries: Canada, Australia, and surprisingly, Malaysia. I submitted an 8-page report. And that actually gave a lot of insight of actually we are doing very much better than UK in terms of prevention. Formal investigation by the government appointed Dame Judith Hackett came out with a lot of facts finding and then recommendations with mitigation measures to government. And in that process, of course, during the investigation, a lot of interviews were conducted from London Fire Authority senior officers who were at site during that night, firefighters on duty, Grenfell Tower residents who survived, external cladding manufacturers like Kingston, testing laboratory officers, building controllers, fire risk assessors, architects, local councillors, government officers, former ministers, members of parliament, fire engineers, fire experts, university professors, relatives of the victims. They all called to court to testify. And it's so interesting to look. When you go to court, you got no chance to explain what you're doing because a lawyer will only ask you yes or no. So there's no defense, all right? Because the court case is moved in such a way. Out of the 72 occupants that perished during the fire, and this is not the actual figure because there are a lot of occupants in that building at that night wasn't registered and recorded. So the actual figure is actually very much higher. There are also some illegal immigrants who actually take shelter in their friend's apartment. Of the 72, 15 are people with disabilities. And they are now in UK debating whether should they look after this group of special people. My goodness. Government actually reversed, make a 360-degree U-turn to not enforce the regulation for the building owners to look after this group of people in UK now. Can you imagine? Here, we are looking towards how to give provisions to people with disabilities in high-rise buildings, in mega shopping complex, because they are the people who are not normal. Okay? And can you imagine 17 of the 67 children perished during this fire? They are the future. So the conclusion is the failure of the legislative system, deregulation of the industry without clear guidelines, lack of professional competency because the professionals are not trained to that level to handle the deregulation, concealing or failing testing data, system that's testing in the lab fail and yet manufacturers market them as passed. So the question remains that as professionals, how many of them really look into the product's test report instead of just looking at the brochure and ask the question, is it bomba approved? That is a very dangerous precedent. Wrongly fire-rated classification of building materials. This is another area I'll share with you what standard to look at after this. Class O rating is out the window now, all right? And there are a lot of misconceptions about Class O rating. I'll share with you also, which is clearly stated in our UBBL. So during this growing process, it's actually really shocking. Really, really shocking. If you actually read some of the articles or some of the findings or the testimonies of the witness. So now, after this particular incident, document B, codes and standards in UK are all subject to review now because they are all cannot be used anymore. And the Parliament, UK Parliament just passed a new fire safety bill, tightening out a lot of areas which are loopholes. Small sample tests are no more reliable. All right, so now that's why we are going for BS 8414 test of full-scale external cladding system. The external cladding aftershock, which causes the Grenfell Tower, also will impact on the entire construction industry, where buildings are installed with external cladding of the similar type as Grenfell Tower, or any other cladding that is combustible. You know what happened is, now all the building owners understand this cladding is combustible. Now, if you are an apartment investor, do you want to buy one of these buildings? No. Okay? These are for the new project. For the existing projects, the value becomes negative immediately. It's because the government's ruling is for all building owners who have external cladding that is highly combustible, you have to remove them at your own cost. That is the first impact. That means straight away that building's value goes negative because now all the building owners are being burdened with an X number of figure they do not know, probably multiple millions, to actually engage a contractor to remove it and to reinstall a new system. The second ruling from the UK government is all these buildings are classified as hazardous building, but they cannot chase everybody out and declare it not habitable. So what the government do is that they pass a law to make sure that all these building owners engage the servicing company to actually do regular inspection. All the costs are to be borne by building owners. So other than fertility rate, now you are looking at the impact on the entire construction industry. All right, so be very careful when you select external cladding, even though they are tested to BS 8414. All right, read the test reports. I think that's more important because most of the time, I think professionals are so busy. I don't blame you. But if you do not read, you do not know how the system are tested, what material do they use. Of course, the first line of defense is go into the material science. Start looking at what do they use. All right, if it is highly combustible, you want to be very careful. That is the old Grenfell Tower. Now, why it is being refurbished is because it's sitting. This property is post-war building, and it's sitting in Kensington area. It's a posh area where Princess Diana's palace is somewhere around the corner. So local council think that it's an eyesore. All right, so they refurbish. But out of the total sum allocated, zero sum is actually allocated for upgrading a fire protection system. In this particular building, there's no sprinkler system. The fire doors are falling. There's no pressurization system. They're using single staircase. And worst of all is that they put highly combustible cladding externally throughout. I will explain to you how the disaster actually occurred. You look at this picture. Picture tells 1,000 words. Now, if you look at the firefighting process, Why the local fire brigade? Do you think the amount of water can actually cope with the fire? That's why we says that anything above 30 meters, firefighting got to be internal, not external. It's impossible. And you can forget about rescue from external. It's so slow and there's not enough equipment. Even though they have turntable ladders, there's only one per state. Okay? It's too little, too late. So we have to seriously looking at how to ensure life safety of occupants during design and how to get them out during a fire incident. The two photos here, one is the Grenfell Tower. And before Grenfell Tower occurs, do you know that cladding fire already happening around the world, especially in Dubai? Okay, why Dubai? Why London? Because of green building index, part of it. If you look at Dubai, Middle East, the temperature is very high. Ambient temperature can go up to 50 during summer. So, in order to reduce the air condition bill, what do? You insulate the building. In London, it's the other way around. It's very, very cold. So what do? You also insulate the building to save heating bill. It's very costly to heat up the place during winter, even normal times. And what is the best and cheapest and lightest material? Polyethylene. You can wrap the whole building and then achieve your insulation material. And that is conservation of energy. Green. But it kills. So that's why I say, if you go on build a green building index, I've got no objection. That is preservation of Mother Earth. But make sure it doesn't turn brown. Okay? Address Hotel is actually a very famous hotel directly opposite Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. And during every New Year Eve, there is actually a firework show at Burj Khalifa. So it attracted international tourists every year. And my friend is actually a local fire chief at that point of time. But 45 minutes before countdown, the cladding of Address Hotel actually catches fire from second floor. And because of the gulf wind, fire was carried up the facade so fast. Luckily, in Dubai, most of the buildings are sprinkler as in Malaysia, so there's no casualty rate. So the tourists all were glad it's because instead of one show, they got two shows. All right? Bonus. Look at the fire color. You can gauge the ferocity. There's four basic colors of a fire. Red, orange, yellow, and white. So it's ranging from about probably 400 degrees C to about 1,000. So if you see anything that's white, you look at the Grenfell Tower, it's yellow and white. So imagine you are the residents with the family in the residence. There's no chance, definitely. And if you look at the after fire photos of the compartment, nothing left except metal. And this is refurbished with double glazed window. Double glazed window already have insulation. Yet, all the windows were all destroyed. So imagine the type of temperature, all right? One of the major cause of this fire that spread so fast is because of chimney effect. They have actually a cavity in between the cladding. Okay, externally is aluminum. Then they have a cavity to allow what they call moisture to be drained off during summer. And internally they have 6 inches, 150 mm of polyethylene. They're so highly combustible and toxic. So this particular fire actually happened on the 4th floor of a freezer. This freezer actually is a very famous local brand. bought over by a Chinese company. Instead of the metal casing, they changed it to plastic casing. And of course, during manufacturing, a lot of things was downgraded, and they have a fire. London Brigade was actually called. They put out the fire and they left, but the fire reignited, and that's the end of the story. Fire broke the window, catches on the external cladding, and it spreads like wildfire. You can see the polyethylene is still there at some of the places. Two types of smoke particles. Black is from organic material, wood and all that. When you see whitish or grayish, you better run. They are from synthetic material that is highly toxic. I always joke, if you die, it's better during a fire. If you live and you inhale smoke particle that is carcinogen, you might contract cancer, lung cancer, and suffer for another X number of years before you pass away and waste a lot of money in curing. Okay, so a fire is actually a very serious matter in terms of fire safety design, and I think we have to take it. What we call the approach should be diligent. So that is the what they call that side elevation of the Grenfell Tower, 20-story. Fire reported on the 4th floor. And this is actually apartment, not a condo, apartment. Pre-war, there's not much regulation, so they design where all the apartments are discharged into a common lobby, which houses lift and a single fire escape staircase. Fire doors in UK is generally only 30 minutes. Okay, but after Grenfell Tower, the government decided to do a test of all the door supplies in UK, and none of them passed the test of 30 minutes. You think Malaysia is doing better? Wait until I show you the photo. So they have different configurations. As I say, of course, below the 4th floors are actually shops, and above all the apartments. And what surprised me is the fire escape staircase, single staircase that comes down from 20th floor to 4th floor, stops there. You got to now travel through a corridor, I don't know whether it's protected, to another location to get down to the ground floor. So the staircase is not continuous. And I also do not know why the architect designed this way. It's crazy, isn't it? Imagine the fire actually fill up the corridor and all that, including the staircase. What are your chances of egress? Fire started here, and then because of the highly combustible cladding, it wrapped around the whole building in super speed. Okay, you look at that, 12:54 a.m. That is the time when people started to go to bed. All right, and by 1:15, people on the 17th floor then starts to realize that something is happening, right? By 1:30 a.m., the flame already go around the building. So it's actually very, very short period of time. There's no fire detection alarm system in the building, so you need your friends to actually inform you. Otherwise, you're high up above, you never know what's happening. Even with the alarm ringing, let me ask you a question. How many of you really take fire alarm signal seriously? When you hear a fire alarm in a building, do you walk out of the building, or you still carry on shopping or doing your work? You want to think about that. I always advise, when you hear the fire alarm, leave the building. Probably you'll be the one who laugh to the laugh. Okay? So by 8 a.m., fire is still burning in the morning. So you can imagine how much fuel is actually packed outside the building to sustain the combustion. Here this shows only one fire escape staircase. So I know a lot of the architect is under pressure to actually design a single staircase. You want to think about that. But I do have a solution whereby if you do not sacrifice lettable floor area for low-rise buildings, you actually have a solution that we are already using it 30 years ago. And it was abundant. I also do not know why. Because all you need for low-rise is actually an alternate fire escape. All right? It doesn't matter the shape, doesn't matter the size. Because of a low-rise, you do not have to actually enclose it like high-rise buildings. Just now I show you how the construction of the external cladding configures. Okay, 6 inches of polyethylene attached to the building surface. They have actually a 50 mm gap cavity, and then the finishes of aluminum outside. If I was discussing with my peers, if the council only clad horizontally and forget about vertical column, then the fire is not too bad. Because when the fire started, it spread from here, and when it hit the vertical column, you just imagine, vertical fire spread is faster than horizontal. So it goes up, and then it starts to spread like a tree. Okay? So I always say, why do you have to do something that actually encourage a disaster? If it stops there without the vertical cladding, then the spread will not be that too bad. Okay, this is another photo. I'll show you from the 4th floor. It goes up, and the cavity actually acted as a chimney. If you look at all the high-rise buildings in KL that have, there's glass cladded, all right? It's the same. It's also external chimney, even though there are some, what they call, rock woods is being placed on the edge. A lot of these systems are not tested. So this is a photo that you can see. Different stage of fire, and look at the temperature and the color of the fire. As I pointed out, if it is white color or yellow, the temperature is so high. And there are already fire incidents, including explosion in Tianjin, China. And the latest one is about 2 years ago in Beirut, Lebanon. Until today, they still cannot find the bodies of the firefighters, virtually evaporated. 3 o'clock, you look at between 3:08 and 3:23, fire spread so fast. And you look at the photo carefully, the fire now is internal. It's not just external. That means the fire already entered all the apartments. That means it's just like the whole building is burning, all right? 4 something until about 5 something, it's still burning. And do you know that the fire investigators cannot enter the building immediately after the fire? Because the heat trap in the building takes a week to dissipate. Some of you, I'm quite sure your apartment or your houses are facing west, right? At evening time, you find that the walls are radiating the sun's energy. And you find it very hot. Imagine the whole building is on fire. They can't enter. They got to keep pouring water to cool it down until it's tenable, where firefighter, fire investigator can go in there to actually investigate what happened. Smoke can be seen miles away, just like a torch. It's a photo taken by a neighbor. Look at the 2 water spray. What do you think they can do? You see, we keep following prescriptive, and we believe with the assumption that whatever we design, even with calculation, can handle a fire. Do you think so? General Sun Tzu say, know thy enemy, know thyself. 1,000 battle, 1,000 victory. Let me ask you a question. How many designers actually understand fire behavior? If you do not even understand how fire behaves, how are you going to ensure your design is safe? Worse, if you don't even understand smoke, how can you design smoke control system? There are so a lot of debate at the moment on LinkedIn. How many of you are on LinkedIn? Can I see your hands? I know if I say Facebook, all will put up a hand. Please get into LinkedIn because there are a lot of information, a lot of updated news. And if you join my network, you get a lot of latest information and news around the world, free. And if you got any problem, if you develop a network, you can actually pose a question. And you find that a lot of the professionals will help you. That's how we get the system working. I spend so much time on LinkedIn. I got now 15,000 direct connections around the world. My total network is about 25 million. That's how you learn. This is called daily CPD. I got news coming in every second. Looking at topics, discussion, discoveries, research, everything. Okay. So do not believe in assumption, because if you do not review the assumption or the way that you practice, it might not hold water. That's another saying. If you keep doing the same thing over the last 10 years, do you think there's any improvement? Because the world moves so fast now. Designing windows, you also got to think in terms of rescue. This Grenfell Tower, when it fitted with a new window, you look at it, it's pivoted inwards, but with only minimum clearance. Fire brigade can't even rescue the occupants with a turntable ladder when they elevate up, because you cannot get the person out of the window. You got to do it internally. But you know, internal rescue is very, very dangerous, because the whole corridor is filled with dark black smoke. And you think external cladding got nothing to do with the surrounding environment. Look at this photo. When the fire burns, the external aluminum sheet is going to fall off and come down. And if you go passers by, you park your cars, I'm telling you, you're finished. It looks like a war zone. When you burn, things fall off, including the framing. This is not only the first photo. I got so many photos. You want to look at the Dubai cases and all that. It's worse than this. I cannot believe. I thought it's Lebanon, fighting a war. Yeah. That night, we have something like 200 firefighters there, and they are so exhausted. Some of them can't even get into the building. It's because of the atmosphere. They are trained, but imagine if you are going in to ask you to climb, because lifts are not supposed to be used, you have to climb 20 floors. Not only that, you're supposed to go in and search maybe about 8 apartments for survivor, potential survivor. And you only got 45 minutes of air, compressed air. And not only that, when you find a survivor, you're supposed to share your air with them. Okay? So if you listen to the firefighters' testimony in court, it's a horror story told by most of them. Let's look at the changing fire phenomenon. Using UBBL, there is no fire behavior inside. It's only a legislative document that is written properly 80, 90 years ago. Yet everybody is still using it like it's a Bible or Quran. I think it's time we have professionals. We need to review. You should not be looking and just believing everything that the bylaw says. Sometimes it's only a minimum requirement. You got to review and look at whether it's still applicable today in today's society. Up to now, I still got professionals coming to tell me, Mr. Tay, fire safety design very simple, because fire can only happen in one place in an entire building. How many of you are basing on that assumption? Nobody put up the hand. Good luck. If you base on that assumption, your design definitely will be out. But I'm not asking you to design to the maximum. All you have to do is review the occupancy risk, isn't it? We have different category occupancy risk. Hospital risk, sleeping risk, hotels, dormitories is different from what they call office. Office, you go there and work 8 hours, after that everybody go home. It's not occupied at night. Your senses when you sleep is lower than when you're awake. So you have to actually start to review the conditions and look at the interior finishes that you put in. Are they combustible, flammable, highly combustible? What about your egress design? So, a quarter of a century ago, actual fire incident already proven that theory wrong. Fire can actually happen in multiple locations in a building. And that's why I was very surprised up to today, professionals still insist that their assumption is correct. Are we blind? Are we ignorant? Or are we so naive? We get stuck in a thinking. The moment you don't change your thinking, you cannot cope with the latest environment in the world, I assure you. All right? And that will impact on your design. So if you look at all these, what I call incidents, the first one happened in Hong Kong back in 1996. This 16-story office building in the Tsim Sha Tsui area, fire happened on the 4th floor. Last time they have this emporium, because supermarket now. On the 4th floor, and then they got offices for the rest of the building. Emporium occupied 4 levels. They are doing a retrofitting of the lift. So they took out all the lift car. They removed all the fire doors in the lift lobby. And Hong Kong, China, you know that they do not use steel scaffolding. They only use bamboo because bamboo is cheap, resilient, and works so much better. So the lift shaft is all filled up with bamboo scaffolding. They do welding. Now before that, all the officers in the upper floors think the fire doors are very ugly. So they remove the fire doors, they replace it with non-fire rated glass door, entrance door. And it's happening in many buildings in KL as well, including underground car park in major shopping complex. Somebody is doing welding on the 7th floor. The spark actually came down, ignited the storage of goods on the 4th floor. Emporium store the goods on the lift landing. And the fire went into the staircase. Of course, it spread along the 4th floor, but the fire also spread onto 14th, 15th floor. When Hong Kong Fire Rescue Service got the call, they went to the site. Commander at that time is actually my friend, the junior officer at that time. Now, of course, the senior officer. They look at the fire, the smoke coming out of the window. To them is impossible, because at that point of time, everybody still assumed fire can only happen in one place in a building. So how come 4th floor is burning, and how come 14th, 15th floor are also burning? So first impression is arson, right? Only arsonists set fire at different places. And later on, when they go in, they elevated their alarm level of seriousness from 4 to 3 to 1. And by this time, occupants on the 14th, 15th floor are finished. What happened is that one of the corporate's office, they're having a board meeting chaired by a lady CEO. During the meeting, when it's about to finish, the receptionist came in and told the CEO, knocked the door and opened and said, "Ma'am, I think we have to leave. It seems that I see smoke and I hear commotions along the corridor." CEO told the girl, 2 more minutes, we're finishing the meeting. None of them came out. Do you know what's the fertility rate? 54. My professor is asked actually to do an investigation in this. And he's also very surprised. But if you look into the case studies, you understand. Risk is everywhere. So we cannot just base on the assumption that fire can only happen in one place. And if you look through the rest of these cases, now with the external cladding, there is foregone conclusion. Then we got to start thinking about what we are designing. Can we cope with this kind of fire? Definitely not. All right. And for the first time, I was also shocked in Milan. This multiple story residential building, the fire started from the top floor and spread downward. Have you ever heard of fire spreading downwards? We are learning every day. Even as a fire engineer, I'm also very surprised because that is a fundamental I know. Fire spread upwards. Okay? Plus, now we are looking at global warming, climatic change. London just reported 2 days ago, their railway track was actually burning because the temperature in London now is something like 35 to 37 degrees C. Equivalent to here. In Australia, you can go up to 40. All right. So we need to actually be aware and start to review your design. So, if you were to still assuming fire can only happen in one place in a building, is it a fact or is it perception or opinion? And what about the impact on the occupants and the firefighters? Our UBBL also did not cover firefighters, did not cover human behavior. There are a lot of things that is lacking in our UBBL. This is actually, you just see how fast the fire spread. The cross building in Melbourne. Notice it's not only burning, but they are dripping debris, highly combustible that help to spread the fire. How many seconds? And you think fire is going to take hours to start and spread? No. Of course, the apartment owners were asked to leave the building because it's not fit for occupancy. But they have to pay the loan they secure from the bank. At the same time, they got to rent a place to stay, so they are losing money. So they group up, they sue the developer. Developer sue the contractor. So contractor say, my goodness, I'm now got this bill on my hand, it's 12 million. Okay? So he said, okay. I think probably his advice, he said, you engage architects, engineer, and building controller to help you to design. Sue them for professional negligence. And that's exactly what he did. At the end, he only picked up 10% of the bill. The rest are being equally spread. You can see that the surveyor pays 33% of the bill, architect 25%, and the fire engineers 39%. But what actually happened after this? All of them were deregistered by the board. And insurance industry suddenly wake up. Oh my goodness. So they cancel all the professional indemnity insurance in Australia overnight. The whole market was jammed until Australian government got to step in, set up a special fund. This now becomes the precedent in legal process. And it's going around the world. Okay? So it's no more just developer tell you to do something, you just do. Because at the end, who is a professional? You are the professional, not them. Okay? You wanted to be aware of what is happening in the rest of the world. And as I pointed out, if there are flaws in fire safety design, your fingerprint is going to be there for the next 30, 40 years. Okay? You cannot wipe it off because it's there in the building. In case there is an incident under investigation, you'll all be exposed. So the question is not, will fire ever happen? But perhaps when it's going to happen. And the clock is ticking. This is actually a Shanghai retired teacher's apartment. 50 people, retired teachers die. And I tell you, it's not pretty. It's because when you retire, you want to enjoy life, right? They use, again, bamboo cladding, bamboo scaffolding, and then with the netting. Again, the welder started the fire, and the rest is history. Now, this particular apartment actually situated in the old town, whereby the street is very narrow, there's no proper planning, fire trucks cannot get in, there's not enough hydrant, and there are a lot of issues. At that point of time, this happened actually after we visited, myself and the fire rescue department visited the Shanghai Fire Rescue Department. They are very well equipped, one of the best, and yet they can't do anything. It's because this is planning issue. All right. If you look at a Dalian high-rise building, this is one of the most expensive and highly invested condominium in Dalian. Dalian is the port of China, from Beijing, south of Beijing. The fire spread so fast up. Now you want to think about the wet riser design. In Malaysia, we only design for 3 outlets. Do you think it's enough? Because one of the residents on a higher floor complained there's no water coming out of the wet riser outlet. So we have to review. It's not just calculation. No. Is it fit for purpose? And why do we need a major disaster to change building regulation codes and standards? Why? Are we not supposed to be proactive? Prevention is better than cure. You're not going to wait for something to happen because, let me tell you, Grenfell Tower, the pressure is so high politically and commercially and all that. Otherwise, if there's no casualty rate, I'm quite sure after 3 months, all will be forgotten. That is the tower in Milan that is so interesting. The fire spreads from above downwards. Do you know how? Because of the melting of the insulation, it drips downwards, and the fires carry actually downwards. Okay, so if you understand the fundamentals, you then can prevent any incident. And this is not pretty. It's starting from one side and it's wrapped around the back, but the back is not that heavily affected. Luckily, everybody is at work, so there's no casualty. But it gives us a very good heads up on understanding of building material behavior. So do we really understand fire? Just imagine it's happening not too long ago. Yeah. We always assume things. Yeah. Because we think that's what is going to happen. So do you really feel comfortable about what we are designing? If you landed in Dubai, you don't even have to know the address of this hotel. All you have to do is tell the cab driver, take me to address. So famous. And it has been rebuilt when I was there in 1997. Sorry, so 2019. When I invited to present a paper at the 9th Fire Safety Conference. So the president of the Middle East IFE branch actually took me together with the fire chief of Dubai to actually go around this area, take a look. And I tell you, in between this address hotel and Burj Khalifa, there is a mall in between. And this mall is the second largest in the world. And it scared the shit out of me because I could hardly find any exit sign. And let me tell you, if you go inside, everywhere looks the same. You really need a way to get out, okay? I'm not kidding. That's the tallest building, Burj Khalifa. All right? This is the address. No. Don't worry. I got a video here on the Milan fire. I tried last night, it worked. So this morning it doesn't work. Never mind. Dame is just like Lord, all right? Like our Tan Sri. So when somebody is being awarded a dame by the Queen, they have very high regards of contribution, standing in their society. So she is actually president of the Institution of chemical engineering. And she has very high profile. So she was asked to actually do independent review of the building regulation and fire safety in UK after the Grenfell Tower. And he was actually invited to deliver her findings during the our centennial conference in UK. And I met her with her and have a nice chat. And that's me talking to her, and I have a fair idea of the findings and her concern actually. So her interim report published in December 2017 reviewed how the regulatory system covering high-rise and complex buildings was not fit for purpose. Can you imagine? This is UK. Okay. And in the intervening period, the committee have seen further evidence confirming the deep flaws in the current construction industry legislative structure system. Further evidence surfaced during the intervening period confirming the deep flaws, and there's a need for radical rethink of the whole construction industry in terms of legislation, in terms of approval process, codes and standards, testing methodology, specifications, competency of fire professionals. You need to be trained, self-trained, and attend CPD. Otherwise, you'll be outdated. Okay? And what are the flaws in our current system? You have to go and take a look at a lot of these findings. It's very, very interesting because a lot of things is happening. It's just that we are not aware of it. That's all. So the most definite is not just a question of specification, of planning, but industry that has not reflected and learned for itself. Let me ask you another question. When is the last time you review your specification for the tender? Put out the hand if you do that during the last 2-3 years. Which means that some of your specification goes back 10 years or 15 years. Do you know how fast we develop Malaysian standard? I'm now even sitting in the ISO, International Standard Organization, TC 92. This is a technical committee for fire and safety. And I tell you, when I get in there, then only I realize Malaysia is actually in kindergarten stage. Inside that, everyone is really a fire expert. For example, Mr. Tanaka from Japan is working for a laboratory for the last 30 years. When they talk, they back up with data, not their opinion, not their perception. You don't talk about figures unless you know what you're talking about. And each and every one of them, in Europe, in America, in China, they know exactly what they're talking about. So mixing with them actually opened my eyes and my mind. I'll share later some of the documents that I got, and it's very interesting because I'm involved now in 3 subcommittees. One is fire growth and initialization, how fire started. Second one is the impact of fire on people, human. All right, they go into the study of burns and all that. Third one, of course, is the regulation and all that, codes and standards. So the key issue underpinning the system failure include ignorance. If you don't learn, you'll be ignorant. All right, regulation and guidance are not always read by those who need to, and when they do, the guidance is misunderstood and misinterpreted. Let me tell you, not everybody can actually read and interpret EBBL, including some of the professionals. Okay? Because these are law. Do you know law? Interpretation of law is very different because definition and all that is only a concept. There's no detail. You cannot assume a lot of things. You have to understand the concept before you look at the details. Indifference. The primary motivation is to do things as quickly and cheaply as possible rather than to deliver quality homes which are safe for people to live in. Commercial pressure is very, very strong. When concerns are raised by others involved in building work by residents, they are often ignored. How can I save cost? How can I save money? Some of these Some of those undertaking building work fail to prioritize safety, using and taking advantage of the ambiguity of regulations as loophole. I don't want to go any further. I think a lot of you have experience in this area. Okay. Lack of clarity on roles and responsibilities. Who are actually responsible? There's ambiguity over where responsibility lies, exacerbated by a level of fragmentation within the industry and including robust ownership. For example, I give you a very good example. You know fire doors? Tell me who are responsible. You're involved fire doors, right? Architects involved fire doors. Okay, who are responsible if something goes wrong? See whether we got the concept right or not. Hello? No answer. My God. Supplier, thank you very much. What do you see on a fire door tag? Do you see Syrian kite mark there? What does that mean? What does that kite mark mean? You tell me. They guarantee quality. So who is responsible now? So now you know the loophole because manufacturers got somebody behind them to ensure their quality. But there's another phase of responsibility. And who are these people? No idea. Hello, all of you are sitting here, okay? You sign Form 26. You assure everything that going to the building comply with regulation, law, whatever. So you are also a gatekeeper. Do you trust that kite mark there? There's only one party involved. But there are also other people involved. Yes. Okay? Inadequate regulatory oversight enforcement tools. Size or complexity of a project does not seem to inform the way in which it is overseen by the regulator. And now, please don't. For more than 15 years, from the Luluskan to the Starkan, they don't approve your drawing. They only acknowledge receipt of your drawing. They only comment when you do not comply with UBBL requirement. They don't care about your design because that is the responsibility of the. And still a lot of architects come and tell me, Bomba approved my drawing. It's really 15 years since we started CCC. So is the concept clear or is so murky or nobody even are interested to actually try to understand what is happening on the market? The above issues have helped to create a cultural issue across the sector, the entire construction sector, and happen around the world, which can be described as a race to the bottom. Race to the top. Normally race, we want to talk about in terms of construction industry. Caused either through ignorance, indifference, or because the system does not facilitate good practice. Let's look at the expert witness from Professor Luke Bisbee, who testified in court, and he is actually the head of the fire engineering school in University of Edinburgh. He's a very nice guy, and actually invited me to attend one of the fire symposiums in the university about 6 years ago. When he testified, his conclusion is so damning, describing the move to performance-based system in the 1980s as part of a flagship deregulation package delivered by Margaret Thatcher. In an effort to increase the freedom of the industry, the regulatory system became more permissive. Permissive means they allow you a lot of free hand to decide. No regulatory mechanism was put in place to ensure that those dispensing fire safety advice had the requisite competence. So are we ready? You can deregulate, but you've got to make sure the structure is there in training, in ensuring competency of whoever that is going to take up that role. If you transfer the authority from the AHJ into the market, make sure that the market is ready. Until today, I can see that we are still not ready. I mean, you could argue that the system was created especially to enable people to circumvent the rules. They are now very much more maneuverability in terms of rules, design, approval. The new regulatory system, which persists to this day, make it a legal requirement for builders to achieve standards such as that external walls adequately resist the spread of fire, but ultimately left it to their judgment as to how this should be done. So you see a lot of decision has actually been transferred, but without any technical backup. And this extract from the other expert witness, Professor Jose Tolero, one of my contacts, and I've invited him into Malaysia to actually deliver a paper during one of the IFSAM, International Fire Conference and Exhibition Malaysia, about 8 years ago. He's a very nice guy and he's very, very knowledgeable. When I met him in University of Edinburgh during my visits, he actually gave a paper to the audience. I delivered a paper, he also did. Of course, he's from academic side. And the students consist of undergraduate and postgraduate students. And his conclusion is current fire-related performance assessment of materials and systems associated with the design, building of, and build of the buildings envelope in UK is flawed. Okay? We always follow class O. But can I ask all of you here, what is class O rating? What is class O? Everybody talk about class O. Actually, what is class O? But if you look carefully, a lot of things that is being used on the market are not class O. Okay? He wrote, the conclusions also indicate that the manner in which the building regulations presume to deliver fire safety is also flawed. He says it's also not clear what the required competency is for professionals to be able to establish the fire performance of a building envelope, because there are jigsaw puzzles that is missing in our UBBL. Fire behavior, smoke behavior, human behavior, they're all missing. And you cannot design a life safety design if you don't have all these missing jigsaw puzzles. Hence, I say, as a professional, you still got to comply with the UBBL, but you got to go beyond it already. And don't tell me you have to look from outside the box. If you look from outside the box, you're still looking inside the box. To me, there should be no box. Then only you can have 360-degree view all around. Okay? He also explained, building envelopes are therefore currently designed in a manner that does not allow fitness or purpose to be established within any certainty. What he is pointing out is that you can test a wall in let's say a furnace, but can you attach it to, let's say you test a wall and test a door, fire door in a furnace, which is actually built around the door with brickwork, 9-inch brick. Can you use this door for partition? It's different. You understand or not? Because the testing environment is totally different. So until you understand the behavior of the partition, you do not know whether how the door is going to operate. And I can tell you at the moment, all the fire doors installed in partition, they do not have structural strength. Because if you wanted to install fire doors in a partition, you should have H frame. You understand what I'm talking about? Normally, for brick wall, you use a C frame, right? Because brick wall are very strong. If you go into a partition, by right, you should actually insist that they come with H frame. That means the frame got to be attached, secure to the soffit as well as the floor. You cannot be exerting the entire weight of a fire door on the partition because they are not designed for that. Okay? These are actually the testimony of the expert witness in court, and I just extract them, and you can see a lot of frustration and the realization that it's a little bit too late to actually talk about this because people die already. There is a 10-year legacy of misunderstanding by the UK construction industry. This is one of the experts' testimony. What are the life safety implications of that? If you don't do things properly, you have to face a consequence. What will happen if one building made of PE core is in fire and will kill 60 to 70 people? There are a lot of PE that's going into buildings now for retrofitting. Are they safe? They are cheap, I understand. They are light, easy to install. Are they safe? Especially hospitals. You have patients that the mobility is in doubt. In ICU, in operation theater, in serious accident ward, outpatient is no problem. Everyone can get out and run. What about the rest of the patients? What about maternity ward, where delivery of baby is on the way? And we think it's safe. Let me tell you something. Join me for a weekend hike. And I guarantee you, you do not need to land up in the hospital. You'll be very safe. So this is a serious safety matter. One other says, I conclude this was very serious evidence of professional negligence. Because everyone was called to court, including the fire risk assessor for Grenfell Tower. He changed his report under the pressure from the council. If this occurs, there could be economic consequences for the building industry and the UK as a whole. Yeah, I told you the impact. Suddenly your property value become negative. Nobody want to buy, you cannot sell. Okay? I didn't have any perception that it was the monster it's become. When exposed to a fire, the aluminum melts away and exposes the polyethylene. Whoops. Whole building is burning. As we all know, ACM will be gone rather quickly in a fire. Did it not occur to you at this point that your budget was simply too low? When you go for the tender, look at your budget. Sometimes if somebody come and offer you 20% lower, you've got to start thinking, can they do the job? Or what product are they going to give it to you? It's not about money anymore. It's about your reputation, your professional reputation. Because you are the one who actually carry the responsibility. If the owner wanted it to be done that way, make sure you get a letter from him. Cover yourself. And that was intentional, deliberate dishonor. This is a comment against Kingspan, who actually failed their test and tell everybody the market is still okay. And up to now, end of last year, they are now trying to approach Scotland government to use their product. Can you imagine? The director knows that the trouble is on the way after Grenfell Tower. You know what? The director sold all his shares, collect all the money. After that, when it's exposed, the share drops. So he already collected his reward. So there are a lot of things that's happening. You want to be very, very careful. It's there in black and white, isn't it? We see a complete absence of any consideration of life safety. They go to the documents, okay? It's true that Kingspan's position was to do its best to ensure that science was secretly perverted for financial gain. So these are the outcomes that is coming out from the court that's recorded officially. You can go into Inside Housing and look at a lot of these reports. Let's hope our luck holds and there isn't a fire. Hope for the best, huh? Great. Isn't that a serious gap in the scope of a policy meant to safeguard vulnerable people? This is referring to people with disability. So conventional wishful thinking, low-rise building has a lower fire risk. Is that a fact? I will show you. This is less than 18 meters. Maryland student hostel. They did not use combustible cladding system like the one in Grenfell Tower. Yet they still got a fire because they used medium density board. It's highly combustible as well. So it's not just PU or polyethylene. There are so many other building materials that is flammable. So did whoever that is actually designing and building this take a look at the building science property? Luckily, it's a top two floor that burn, and it's not actually, it's around 10 o'clock, I think, at night. Most of the students are still out, not back, so there's no casualties. So don't ever assume that low rise have no risk. This is below 18 meters, and they do not need a lot of fire protection measures. And if you look at the fire that is burning, what did I tell you about the color? Is it ferocious? Is it high temperature? And do you think the firefighting is going to be effective? And we are talking about reducing the flow of a hydrant. We always assume again that if you design your egress path, looking at the floor density, hi presto, everybody's going to get out of the building within X number of minutes. Are you sure? Didn't you realize that the social behavior already changed? Before I talk about this actual accidents, that is actually very, very serious. How many of you are in Mid Valley? I think 1.5 years back, where they have a fire on the lower ground. Did anybody escape? No. Everybody converged on the news stand shop and start taking videos and photos. First reporter on site. You see, human behavior. Anybody now got a smartphone, they won't leave the fire scene. They want to report. They want to show to their friends, I'm here. I'm doing the reporting. Okay? So this incident actually happened in underground of Hong Kong years ago. This guy that is actually mentally disturbed wanted to commit suicide. So he brings some petrol with him. While the train is moving before reaching the station, he dosed himself in the petrol and light it up. And of course, the smoke spread very fast. Clothing is burning and all that, and this petrol, okay, carbohydrate fire. And luckily, the train stopped at the station, and you can see the guy is burning. Did anybody move? Taking videos. All right? Still people are taking videos. Because the crowd did not disperse, it actually slowed down the firefighters and the paramedics from reaching the site. And you still got people taking photos there. And do you know that the smokes are toxic? Petrol carbon fire, the smokes are toxic. Okay? Are these people kidding? This is another incident in UK, Lakana House, 6 deaths. Okay, I was told that we are supposed to go for tea now, so I'll see you after tea. Thank you. So the color of the fire, you look at it again, don't ever think that other than the, what they call polyurethane, it's going to be ferocious, but same, any material that have enough heat, it will burn, okay? Did people disperse, as we assume? No. Lakana House, fire 6 deaths. You can see that the fire also spreads. Multiple within the building. And there are a lot of flaws in the design because the, again, the single staircase next to the apartment, and there's no proper fire barrier system. So the smoke is allowed to travel extensively. And also, they kept a lot of things on the balcony as storage. Another low-rise in India. And I looked at, I was viewing the video, and it's not pretty. How many floors? 1, 2, 3, 4 floors. There are people who jumped from the top floor. No proper fire escape. And despite so many fire trucks, do you think the water is sufficient? We assume too many things. We assume, fire authority is going to come within 7 minutes. No. That is during Dato Sri Ong Kar Teng's time, already deregulated. He also announced Fire and Rescue Department Malaysia cannot reach any fire incident site according to international norm of 7 minutes. Okay? And it depends also on how many water tender they're going to send. Because water tender is the one that contains only 600 gallons with a pump. They send, some of these are actually emergency tender for rescue purpose. They come with a lot with the equipment for search and rescue, but with no water. You think 600 gallons is enough? for factories that relying on, what is the waterworks department? Shabas, okay? And you think that Shabas pressure is enough for the flow? Has anybody checked? Sometimes pressure is so low. For domestic, yes. For firefighting, definitely not enough. We need about 4 to 7 bars. Sometimes you only get 2 bars without pump. God help you. And if you think you buy insurance, insurance is, underwriters are not stupid. Go and read the agreement. Anything that is not enough to protect your property, that is supposed to be one of the conditions of insurance, they won't pay you. So you see, there are so many issues on the market that we have to really look into. All right. Okay, that's the first paper. Okay, we have heard enough of the problems that we encounter at Grenfell Tower. Lesson learned. Normally what you want to do is to learn on other people's experience, and hopefully it doesn't happen in Malaysia. Okay, so I'm going to talk about, in the second chapter, holistic fire safety design approach. During my talk, if you got question, you can raise your hand. Okay, you don't have to wait until at the end. You can raise it anytime. If you think that you need clarification or whatever, just ask me. I pointed out that, we need to actually understand our enemies. Enemy, fire. So if you are looking at sustainable fire safety engineering as a design, a futuristic design, then you need to understand. You have to learn more, and I'm quite sure that all of you got knows the search engine, you got a smartphone. Morning, during breakfast, you can start reading a lot of information on the website. So you understand, once you understand fire, then you review what you have been doing, then you have, you understand there are a lot of areas that you need to improve. Why? Is because fire actually generates heat. And heat and temperature is no joke. Then, of course, a lot of materials cannot achieve complete combustion. Then you got smoke intensity. Okay? And this is the one that obscures visions during egress. Now, a lot of synthetic material comes with toxic gases as well. And some of these are very corrosive. Imagine telecom. The Naga, they got tons of PVC cables. Do you know what is in the air if it burns? Hydrochloric acid, PVC. Hydrochloric acid. We got moisture contained in the air. The droplet straight away become hydrochloric acid, right? And you know where it goes? Unless you apply the waterproofing membrane from the sponsor this morning, it's going to be absorbed due to capillary action of the pores in the concrete, the reinforced concrete, and attack the rebar. So don't be too happy after a fire, you just paint the wall and go back to work. The structural strength could be different. In Singapore, they do scanning after that, every fire. Here, I do not know. Germany, 25 years ago, they have technique to extract all this after a fire. They have special equipment. Of course, then the byproduct, you have carbon dioxide, water vapor, and the last one is the most important, carcinogen byproduct. Needle punch carpet that is on your feet generates hydrogen cyanide gas. All you need is 0.0003 parts per million, and you go to heaven. You don't need a lot of things in a fire to kill people, okay? You won't be burned to death, that's for sure, because most of the fire victims die from smoke suffocation and inhalation. A lot of people experience COVID. That's exactly the feeling if you walk in a smoke-filled environment. Same. Lack of air, you cannot breathe. Okay? UVBL requirement, myth versus fact. Can anybody tell me what is class O rating? Lunch is waiting for you if you get the right answer. What is class O? So popular. Everybody talk about class O on the market. What is class O? Come on. A lot of you are AR. Maybe there's some IR here. What is a class O? Let me show you. It's actually written in Bylaw 204. Classification or restriction of flame over surfaces of walls and ceiling. It says, the bylaw says, for the purpose of this part and the 8th schedule to these bylaws, any reference to a surface being of a specific class shall be construed as a requirement that the material of which the wall, ceiling, or soffit is constructed shall comply with the following requirements. And class O is surface of no flame spread. How many of you use class O that actually have class 1 flame spread index? And you think it's class O. It's never class O. Any reference to a surface being class O shall be construed as a requirement that the material of which the wall or ceiling is constructed shall be non-combustible throughout. Nothing burns if you put it in a furnace. Or the surface material, if it is bonded throughout to a substrate, surface material in conjunction with the substrate shall, when tested in accordance with BS 476, reference to a substance being a class other than class O shall be construed as a requirement that the material of which the wall or the ceiling is constructed shall comply with the relevant test criteria to a surface spread of frame specified in BS 476 part 6 and 7. This is not even the standard. It is UDBL 204, a legislative requirement. Please go back and look at your specification again. And what is BS 476 part 6 by a test? Let's look at the test and you tell me how relevant is this to actually certify a material. Okay? The furnace is very small. You put a small sample and then there's 2 heating elements. You subject to that kind of heat for a very short period of time. And it's a small piece of material, not even the entire system. Imagine you test insulation or anything of a massive external cladding system. How this test is related to the overall functioning of an external cladding system, I don't know. That's exactly what Professor Jose Tolero pointed out. What relevancy? There's no relevance. Everybody just assume it's going to work. Looking at the way that it's being tested, you will straight away realize, any people with common sense will straight away realize that it's not relevant. You can't use this. You can't base on this. Let me see whether I can get this to work. Okay. Watch how the material is being tested under part 6.
The BS 476 Part 6 test equipment was developed for the UK construction industry, but is also used by other industries today. We're comparing the performance of our test material against the performance of a non-combustible board. We take the specimen and clamp it into the test rig, and then we expose it to both direct flame and a radiant heat source. We are taking the temperature measurements in the chimney of the test equipment. By limiting the heat released from materials, we're allowing building occupants more time to escape from a fire.
That's all. Part 6.
The BS 476 Part 6.
So you're looking at subjecting the sample, small piece of sample, to flame and heat for a heating element for 20 minutes. How long do you think a fire is going to last? What is the temperature? A full-scale fire. You see the full-scale fire temperature just now in terms of color gradient. And do you think this test can actually fully represent the actual condition when you apply the material? If it is not, what is the relevancy? Why are we not reviewing? You can now wake up. They are taking a look at everything they have been doing and following for the last 30, 40 years. And suddenly find out, oh my goodness. We need to start thinking. Problem now is that everybody just do a fast food style. They want immediate answer, but they don't understand why. You have to think, review, and analyze. All right? If this is okay, part 6 is okay, then you go on to part 7, all right? And there is no fire. This is only a pilot flame and a radiant panel. And tell me, does it actually reflect a full-scale fire scenario?
The BS476 Part 7 test equipment that we see here has a long history in the UK. It was developed for the construction industry, but it's since been adopted for other applications, such as the UK defence industry and train projects. We use the test to assess the spread of flame across the surface of a specimen. The operator will take visual observations looking at how far the flames have spread along the reference line, which is drawn onto the test specimen. Only flaming on this reference line counts towards classification. The further the flames spread, the worse a test result.
What is your take on this test? You witness the test, the fire spread horizontally. That imagine you turn the but yet there's no test for cladding at that point of time. So they just take this and then apply on the cladding. Is it relevant? Are the professionals aware of all this behind when a manufacturer submit the sample to you in a beautiful brochure? Or do you wanted to find out a bit more? So again, as I say, all these are not relevant the way I look at it. It doesn't matter how fast, how slow it spread. The point still remains that the material is combustible. Agree? Radiant heat, there's no even fire. Only the pilot flame was there to start the fire and then they remove it after 1.5 minutes. So, class O, class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, the way I look at it, it doesn't give you any comfort at all. What do you mean by surface of very low flame spread? Now, when you look at things like that, even though you're looking at 6 inches, it's still burning. And then it depends on the material. Does it give out toxic fumes? Is it being applied on the escape path? A lot of this material could end up in the corridor. Yeah. So, to recap, facts against market misconception. Class O surface of no flame spread. You all got a copy of the UBBL. Go back and take a look. 204. Okay? I think it's time for UK. I think they're in that process to look at the EN European norm, that's EU standard, for building material classification. Taking a material and burn is only one part of the test. I think you need to understand a bit more of how do we classify the building materials. In Belgium, they classify as more detailed A1, A2, B1, B2, 3, and then go to F. F is fail, just like your examination, okay? In fact, if you look at EN, it's even more complex. Anything that is green can still consider, depending on application. Anything that is orange and red, I think you can forget about them. Now, they're more detailed in classification, and they do a lot more tests according to European norm. A1 is actually material that is non-combustible. Totally non-combustible. A2 is non-combustible, but yet they might have certain component that is slightly combustible within range. B and C is difficult to ignite. It's still combustible depending on temperature. Do you think any material in this world is totally non-combustible? Anybody? Is there any material in this world that is totally non-combustible? No. I see some shake head. I see some like that. What is your take? Actually, everything in the world is combustible. Okay, how do you quantify this concept? It all depends on what temperature it subject it to. You can find the best material on earth, bring it to the sun surface and see what happens. It vaporizes. You know Challenger that you used to know, the space shuttle that NASA built for space exploration, and on re-entry, because we got the atmosphere, the friction is so high it generates 2000 degrees C. There's so much, that's double what is experienced in a lab. So what they do is that on the nose cone where the Challenger comes in, they coat it with a fire-resistant paint. Still, it's not good enough because this is very thin layer, but it's very, very good. It actually provides the insulation that you require. And yet it's still not good enough. So they put ceramic tiles on the nose cone to add to the structure protection. And yet, I believe one of the mission, Apollo 12 or whatever, on the re-entry, some of the tiles was detached due to the friction. And the astronauts nearly died. Temperature experience in the cabin is so high. So nothing is non-combustible. Okay, it's dependent on the temperature. So in this particular EN test 13501, they look at also S, indicating for smoke intensity. If you can burn, how much smoke it's going to generate. So you got S1, no smoke or hardly any smoke production. This is almost equivalent to gas already, all right? S2, limited smoke production. S3, unlimited smoke production. That means I give you a lot of smoke. So if you are using some of these materials for egress routes, you know how to select. Give you a better guidance. Then you look at D, does it drip? Does it help to propagate fire? So you got D, 0, 1, 2, okay? So you can see that the European standard is so much clearer now, very much more advanced. And they give you a clearer guideline for professionals to select, building owners, interior designers, things like that, to select. So this is actually also taken up by DIN 4102. DIN is actually German International Standard. And I can tell you DIN is very, very advanced. I visited DIN headquarters to have a briefing by them. At that point of time, they already have, I think it's about 8 years ago, they already have about 20,000. Now, I think it's more than that. Malaysia is still struggling, I tell you. They even got a standard, teaching you how to develop a standard. And they also have a standard telling you how to conduct a funeral. Germans are very meticulous, very, very good, very systematic. So if you go back to you look at it, this is only B1, B2, all red. You can't use. Okay? They don't look at class O. Seriously, they are looking at, you must comply with all these three criteria: combustibility, smoke index, and drip index. Now, let me come back to the assumption. And it's so critical, and you don't just talk prescriptive. We have been looking at the flow and the pressure required out of a hydrant or out of a hose. And now there are a lot of misconceptions. I'm very sorry to say that from professionals. Because the moment you reduce the flow and the pressure, you save the pump size. You save cost. But they've forgotten that the frontliners' life is at stake if you do not give them proper pressure and flow. Okay? Secondly is that everybody assumes that when I get a hose, I can put out the fire. Wrong. Look at the photo. This building is so famous, Notre Dame. I visited several times. I'm admiring the architectural design, the build out, the detailings, the flying board and all that. I tell you, it's fantastic. I even go inside. I love, because I study building history. I've been to Rome, I've been to Venice, I've been to everywhere, and I look at the Renaissance, Baroque, Gothic design. It's fantastic. At that time, the culture is so rich. Look at the detailing. And luckily the whole cathedral is built from stone. 100% fireproof, except the roof. Okay? So during one of the maintenance, there's no proper fire safety SOP. Standard operating procedure. The worker actually started the fire, and the rest is history. This is 600 years old. You can never rebuild. Heritage building, when it's burned, is gone. The value is gone. Just like you got a vintage car, if you knock, bang somewhere, you replace, it's no more vintage. Okay? You look at the firefighters that is trying to put out the fire with the jet. Look at that. You can't even reach the fire. You see? Why? Why you can't reach the fire? Because of wind shear factor at that height. Up to now, this wasn't even factored into all the M&E design. We discussed a lot of market issues during our deliberation. I've actually seen designers design a smoke extraction outlet placing on the positive side of the building where the wind blows. You know, during testing commissioning, the smoke are all blown back into the building. You don't consider external factors. How is it going to be safe? Anybody check with the meteorological department about westerly wind during which season? No. Put a big fan on the roof and hope for the best. So if you look at it closer, where did the water go? Let me tell you. 30% is going to drop to the floor because of the droplet size is about 1 to 2 millimeter diameter. Very coarse, okay? Because when the jet flows, leaving the nozzle, because of the friction of the edge, is coarser than the middle portion that is finer in terms of diameter. So the center portion is more finer mist than the out. So when the water droplet is bigger, you got gravity, you don't forget. You're spraying this water through the air, it drops. So 30% is already gone. The plant will love it on the ground. Then you want to look at what happened. Wind carries some away. And 20% probably is gone with the wind or more. What about evaporation? The fine mist in the middle that goes into the fire, do you think they reach the fire? You forgot. When the fire is burning, you got a hot plume of gas coming out. That is very, very hot. If the water droplet is too fine, it never reaches the seat of the fire to cool it. It will be evaporated. So how effective actually are the active fire protection systems? If you keep designing according to prescriptive, that's the result you're going to get. Thank you. Actually, for heritage, you need fire safety management. You need risk assessment. And you need to train the people to be vigilant. You need to start looking at what is combustible. What are the risks that you're facing? And the contractors who engage them, are they trained? Are they aware of the risk? You're talking about timber roof truss for 600 years. You know how dry the weather in UK. Do you know which place on earth fear the most of a fire incident because they cannot put it out? Do you know where? Antarctica. Antarctica is the most populated compared to Arctic. You know, we got North and South Pole, right? Antarctica is South Pole. America and another probably 8 countries have their research center there. The air is so dry, the temperature is minus 50 to 60. You imagine a piece of paper down there, do not even need an ignition source to light it up. All you need is a static spark. And if air is so dry, you cannot put it out. And it's so cold. Imagine you use water. What's going to happen? So freeze. So in places whereby the risk is so high, and now they actually have to raise billions to rebuild, you know. And even the rebuild, they'll be declassified from United Nations Heritage Site. Status is gone forever. And talking about that, Malaysia, we are very lucky. We have 2 cities that's designated as United Nations Heritage City, Malacca and Penang. We got tons of problems in these two cities. Go and take a look at Malacca. Domestic home is about 120 feet deep, single staircase, floor all wooden, staircase all wooden. And the back, no back lane, because last time the Portuguese built a wall dividing 2 residential units. Where are you going to run? If the staircase is burned, if the fire is happening in the front where the sitting room is, you need to think. Then you need to come up with solutions. I've actually proposed to architects who are dealing with heritage. We have a few seminar before. And when you convert a residence into a hotel or hostel, authority will definitely want you to put an alternate staircase, modern and closed. How are you going to do that? Because Cosmos refused for you to renovate any heritage. The moment you touch their building, it's no more heritage. So you got another council that is against it. You got authorities that you have to comply with the current regulation because now the architects are in the middle. So I told the architects, why can't you go back to 30 years ago when we used just a single spiral staircase, 2-story, you don't have to enclose it. Right? Staircase, if you have natural ventilation, you don't have to enclose it. What? How will you do that? 1-story, cheap, good, and doesn't occupy space. So there should be an alternate solution. We cannot all the time look at the bylaw, look at, you need so big, you need handrail, you need look at the riser, trade, and all that. Why? We're so tight, fixed without thinking, There's no more flexibility. We don't analyze, we don't look for solution. This is not KFC, okay, or McDonald's, fast food style. No, you need to start thinking and analyze, okay? So we have to actually start looking. I'm even surprised whereby we actually have one design factor for all the buildings. You think about it, a small factory, single story, very small. The hydrant flow and the head still the same as one plant that is run by Petronas, hydrocarbon refinery. Give you another example. We are designing 40, 50-story residential condominium apartment. How do you calculate the egress rate? 1.12 meters per second. One egress speed for all the populations across the board, including children, including obese, including people who are disabled, including senior citizens. Are you kidding? What you design, assuming every Malaysian citizen is 20 years old, same height, same leg length, same energy, where they can walk at the same speed. It's time we got to start looking at developing data. Or you need a range. Providing fire escape staircase, you talk about the width, but there's no other consideration. Oh, can fit 2 persons. And you're telling me that everybody must walk rubbing shoulders. You try and walk and rub shoulders with somebody next to the door and see whether you can do that or not. It's never happened because human behavior is that you always want to keep a distance, right? Even you walk with your brothers, your boyfriend or girlfriend, you never walk rubbing shoulders. Holding hand, yes. So in a corridor, you cannot assume that this width is sufficient. I've seen a lot of practical research coming from Scandinavian countries. They use CCTV camera to observe people moving through the fire escape staircase. And now from there, the research paper concluded that you need at least about 4 inches on both sides of the corridor as a buffer zone so that you cannot be walking rubbing against the wall, isn't it? Try to do that and see, and escape during a fire and see what happens. So there are a lot of areas that I don't think we review, we bother. We need to start thinking. Are we designing safe buildings? Or are we thinking that they are safe? It's totally two different things. One is perception and opinion, the other one is fact. Are they safe? You think they are safe? Are they safe? So performance-based fit-for-purpose design should be the norm from now on, or you do prescriptive and hope for the best. So non-combustible building materials always survive fire incidents, but I know that is impossible. So what you have to do is select them for critical areas. Other areas you might have still got to give and take. Okay? I'm not the type that, it's one way. No. I always tell my friends, I can close one eye. If you ask me to close 2 eyes, I'll become blind. Okay? So you can close one eye if the condition doesn't allow. Okay, fine. But you cannot always close both eyes, right? So you must expect the unexpected. You need to conduct fire risk assessment. You got to think and look at what risk are you looking at. We design without fire risk at the moment. Because the prescriptive code tell you 2,000 meters square, you put in sprinkler system, it's okay. Factory Mutual, Global conducted a lot of full scale now proof that sprinkler system for high power storage effectiveness has been reduced from 95% to 70%. Why? I can tell you this fact, but you cannot quote me because you do not understand why. I can tell you why. Because last time we packed things into carton boxes, right? Or open boxes made of paper. When the sprinkler operates, the water can filter through to the lower rack where the fire happens. Then we pack the goods into these carton boxes, and then because to prevent the moisture from getting in, we apply a coat of wax outside. When it catches fire, sprinkler water comes on the top. It cannot stay because it just slid away. Wax, you understand? It expels water. So this is one factor. Now it's even more serious because no more pellets. Woods are expensive. They change it to plastic bins. Plastic bins, if you buy the type perforated, water still go through. But we have seen a lot of bins is totally enclosed. So the bins on the top will then suspend all the water from the sprinkler from reaching the fire below. So not effective. If you buy insurance and you go into this situation, you'll be in trouble, I assure you. And these are full-scale experiment conducted in Maryland, USA. Not pretty, okay? So gone are the days where you assume things. You got to actually keep updating yourself, then you understand a lot of things that's happening around the world. And in America, all the firefighting waters are not supposed to be discharged into a drain because of environmental issue. They're supposed to be collected, filtered, before allowed to discharge. All right? They already have this ruling under NFPA. Not here yet, but you cannot keep talking about green, preservation of environment, and yet you allow this type of thing to do. Okay? Fire and smoke behavior may not be predictable. And even until today, I was shocked when I find fire spreading downwards from a multi-story condominium. Let me tell you something else that is very interesting. You know, fire is like you and me, human. In your family, if you've got 5 siblings, do you have all of them, 5 siblings, same character, same likings? No, right? Sometimes they look so alien, like belong to another family. Same like fire. Do you know until now, scientists still find it very difficult to do research on fires because you cannot duplicate the same fire in the lab. You look at the fire, when it burns, it flickers. Frequency is all different because so many data. Can you duplicate one? Because you cannot. It's natural. So fire and human are the same, okay? And worst of all is that, what do you need to breathe? What do you need to breathe? Air and oxygen. What does fire need? Air and oxygen. So if you happen to be in the same room as a fire, you are competing with the fire for air. Right? Modern fire is more ferocious than high fire propagation rate, with high fire propagation rate. So this one you also got to remember. It's very, very different. I showed the video just now, the external cladding fire spread so fast. Minutes, it's not hours. And wind shear factor may affect firefighting effectiveness. Also the number, because if you look at a plant in, let's say, oil refinery in Crete, normal hydrant cannot cope, I guarantee you. In UK now, they're using high pressure pump that come with a container skids. You know where is the supply pipe? 8 inches. You know where is the delivery pipe? 6 inches. Still cannot put out a tank farm fire. I talked to the commander in UK, and this depot in Midland of UK actually store all the aviation fuel for Gatwick and Heathrow Airport. And they got a tank farm fire that burns for a week. More than few thousand flights were cancelled because the tanker actually berthed in the coastal area. They pump through underground pipe to this storage area, and then it's being delivered to Heathrow and Gatwick through underground pipe. and the tank farm was actually on fire. In fact, the commander was telling me, they have no idea when can they put it out. They just keep pumping the water with foam into the tank farm. The other incident is in China. This tank farm, there are 150 tanks. You know the tank farm that stores combustible liquid. The commander actually delivered a paper in the same session as me in Fire Hong Kong conference. So he told me, he said, I don't even know whether can I put out the fire. I just tell my firefighters on shift 24/7, just keep putting the water there with the foam. So the fire now is very, very different. Okay, I tell you another incident that is very scary. Bayan Lepas in Johor, there's this tank farm, one tank only that contains methane. And this is actually the chemical that gives up highest heat release rate. So last time, Wan Zulkarnain was actually the commander in Johor Bahru. So his guy go in, put out the fire truck with a hose and ready to attack the fire. But they find that the heat is so intense, so they retreat 30 meters. There is already one hose length. Still cannot retreat 60 meters. There's two hose length. At the end, still cannot retreat. Now, if you keep retreating, how can you put out the fire? Tell me. That comes back to the question where I discussed a lot of time, even with the senior officer in this country. You look at all the refineries. They install foam monitor out of a hydrant that is laid along the road next to the tank farm. So I raised the issue. This is all designed according to NFPA standard. So I said, tell me who is going to be there holding the monitor, fighting the fire when it's so close to the tank farm. We follow prescriptive code, but nobody review, nobody think. The temperature could be about 1,000. Even you wear proximity suit, the one with silver color, not firefighting suit, you can only last less than a minute with the type of heat intensity. So even the fire chief agree with me. It's better for them to invest in foam truck, foam monitor that you see in the airport that is mobile. They can shoot from very far. Expensive, but it's better that you lay all the pipe and it's useless. And if there's an explosion, probably the pipe will be dislocated. We don't get supply anywhere. And now we are also looking at the tank farm where they have all these sprays, deluge system. When the tank is heated up, the metal expands. The pipe will be dislocated because you look at the pipe is so small. When the pipe is dislocated, even a pump is running, what fire protection system do you have? So it's not just designed according to EBBL, designed according to standard, designed according to whatever, and then you think it's going to work. No. Please look at the actual case. Analyze and start looking and imagine that what is actually going to happen on the ground. And then think, look at your design. Can you cope? Cannot cope, then there is a lot of problem. Okay, if you sign off, that's one of the problem. Damages, people get killed, and all of these other problems. Okay. Corrosion factor of combustible byproducts need to be taken into consideration for environmental protection. I will talk about it. Organic material poses higher flammability index than non-combustible material. So, if possible, use something that cannot burn. That's even though you spend slightly higher, 20%, even up to 30%, I will still do it. Because return of investment is definitely worth it. You should not be looking at post-fire. At the moment, we are still tuned into designing, looking at post-fire. Let's fight a fire when it happens. That's a lose-lose situation. We should be looking at prevention, pre-fire scenario. How can we build in all the safety features that hopefully reducing the risk where a fire is going to happen? Right? That is a better strategy than fighting a fire because you are going to have smoke damage, fire damage, and water damage. And let me tell you, water damage sometimes is much more than fire damage. I quote you so many cases. Singapore, Jurong East, they have this big pub plant that produce newspaper print. You know, the reel is actually very big. So they keep producing, they keep stacking up, and because of expensive storage space, they only leave the space for people to go through, the workers. But you got so many vertical surface that can burn. Every year, at least 3 fires. When the fire started, they call the fire brigade. Singapore Civil Defense is very efficient. They go down there, they put out the fire. Fire damage, burn and all that, 20,000. You know, water damage, 250,000. All these could be thrown away. Where's the logic? Then I gave them a solution. A fire suppression system that use water mist with only 13 liters of water per firefighter. After that, they sent a letter of commendation to Singapore Civil Defense. No more damage. But I still tell them that is not the way. You don't wait for, you know already the risk is so high. You've got to re-look at your risk and do your risk management. Okay? Cellulosic, natural materials like timber, paper, cotton, plywood, these are organic. But synthetic now is rampant, especially hydrocarbon-based plastic, your car, everything that you use from computer to your handphone to your gadgets in your home, a lot are synthetic, and be very careful. If you've got an e-scooter, I suggest you put it outside. We have enough e-scooter fire that burn the whole house. Okay. Now Singapore banned. London also banned to bring the e-scooter into the underground tube station and on the train, because they generate highly combustible toxic potential, and they have carcinogen byproducts. Okay. So you got PVC cables, plastic, curtain, carpet, solvents, paints. Non-combustible building materials has good fire-resistant property. For brickwork, reinforced concrete, rock wool, mineral fiber, etc. And inorganic compound may also have good heat-resisting properties like calcium silicate, gypsum. So there are many materials on the market for you to choose. But don't, please, do not put price as your first choice of selection. Okay? Because you might have to pay very much more later. So fire risk is actually one of the prominent factor that you have to consider if you are looking at design. Because fire safety, you have to look at fire risk, which is at the moment missing. High fuel load, timber flooring, insulation materials where they classify as green. I understand conservation of energy, but if it burns, it becomes brown. Open staircases, unless it's naturally ventilated. Fire protection systems in Malaysia, let me tell you, by the dictionary, you cannot find the word maintenance inside because there's no maintenance in Malaysian culture. Non-maintenance of fire doors, we just have a discussion during the tea time. And so many people are so confident. The fire escape staircase in my condominium is going to be smoke clear. Are you sure? I, for one, know that it cannot be. You got pressurization system. You look at the design. Current design says if you open more than 10% of the doors, total number of doors, you lose the 50 Pascal. 50 Pascal is very small pressure. Any higher, you can't open the doors from inside the protected corridor or the lobby. 10% of the doors, if you're staying in a 40-story condominium, means any fifth door that open, you lose a 50 Pascal. How many doors do you think is going to open during a evacuation, mass evacuation? Think about it. Secondly, pressurization is only feasible if all the fire door on each of the floors is in full functional condition. Who maintains fire doors, you tell me? So many times I see fire door is held open with a portable extinguisher there. Do you think you have your pressurization? And you still live in the false pretension and security that I am protected. You want to buy more insurance? Look for Tong Li Xiong. Okay? I'm not kidding. And I will never buy a condo that is so high up. Tell you a joke. When I was presenting this paper at the International Fire Conference in Dubai, After a tea break, I saw these three residents. The Arab came with a robe, white robe, very nice. I said, Mr. Tay, after listening to the paper, we are worried. I said, why? He said, we just bought condominium so high up, you know. I said, oh, he said, how to walk down the staircase? Can you teach me? I said, walk. Which floor? 88th floor. I said, no need lah. I give you another solution. Oh, good. I said, go to a developer. How many of you in the family? 4. I said, ask for 4 parachutes. Okay. Open the window. I said, you got a lot of sand, desert. You can land anywhere you want. Parachute. Afraid to jump. Then ask for hang glider. Okay, you can glide. I said, why do you pay multiple millions to go that high? I said, what do you see? Most of the time they see nothing because it's cloud cover. Maybe you can see the sun. I don't know. There's no logic. You understand or not? Everybody thought the higher I go, I can boast to my friend. I pay so high. And now, suddenly realize, oh, it's not safe. If you stay in a hotel with your family, don't go for views. My advice. 3, 4 story, the best. Don't go for 18, 20, 30 story. Okay? So there are some of these, I won't go in, but as I say, it's relevant. And then you've got to look at the fire hazards. Because the fire hazard is the one that triggers a fire. The risk is the fuel load, and the probability of fire is going to happen. So multiple ignition source, smokers, of course now you say no smoking is even worse because there are a lot of people who actually churi smoking. And then when somebody comes, they will simply throw the cigarette butts, and then you got a fire. Aging, electrical wirings, short circuiting, fire certificate. Talk about fire certificate. A lot of owners say, I got a certificate, from the fire authority. They approved my building, I say, are you sure? Did you read the Fire Services Act 341? Please read, okay? You self-declare to authority that every system, active and passive, in your building is in perfect working order before they give you the fire certificate. It's self-declaration. Because they engage a contractor, I don't know how the fire contractor, check all these important code compliance requirements, and then who signed? They pass it to the manager to sign. Contractor didn't sign. He ticked all the boxes, because if you don't tick the box, you never get your fire certificate. So 8 pages of boxes, you tick everything. Despite the fact that they never inspect the door. They don't even know how to inspect the door. They still take. Then you'll be thinking, wow, this contractor is so good, huh? I apply, sure, I get my fire certificate. Because they're not responsible. Whoever signs is responsible. I hereby declare. You sign with the name, with the whatever there. Okay? So you need, actually, all the existing buildings will need actually a qualified fire risk assessor. And IFE is actually conducting a 5 days accredited course now to teach everybody how to do this properly. And it's very, very complete because we cover all the topics. All right? And we teach you how to go beyond the codes and standards and regulations. No competence fire risk assessment, and nobody cares. But they never look at the loss figure that's so high. I'll give you another example. Tommy Pack. Have you heard of Tommy Pack Packaging Company, International? They invested in a plant in Senai, 300 million. Don't know how many years ago. They just got a fire, I think, about 8 months ago. All the top executives in the insurance industry did not get their bonus because the total payout for insurance industry is 300 million a year. You know what happened? The stock value of Tommy Pack dropped 9% the following day. To rebuild the plant, do you think it's going to cost that amount 10 years ago? Of course it's not. Right? Everything changed. Construction material goes up, supply chain shortage, now labor shortage, and then some of the machinery is outdated. You got to buy new one, it costs more. What about the lost time, downtime? What about the legal aspect where all your clients going to sue you for non-supply? There's so many things, bad publicity and all that, and the investors' confidence is no more there. So you see, one incident might decide the downfall of a corporation. Modern fire also takes longer time to extinguish a fire, right? And water and steam effect may cause unrepairable damage. When they put too much water into a fire, it turns to steam. When it turns to steam, the temperature goes up at least 2 times or 3 times. Okay? Those who understand physics, what I'm talking about. Structure is fragile to heat. I talk about it now, corrosive gas and water attack. And that's why the sponsor is here today to tell you you can actually protect your structure. Interior finishes may sustain permanent smoke, corrosive damage. So the way forward in fire safety design, we now call for a full-scale test, BS 8414 in Malaysia, for external cladding. That is the opening ceremony. I was invited by fire authority, and I was surprised because all the CRIM heads were there, and there's a special stage that's higher. And when the senior fire officer wishes me, CRIM president invited me up there to sit with them. Actually, I was invited as an institution, a representative. And okay, fine, you test full scale. So there are a lot of lessons learned from the full scale test. This is actually initiated by BRE, British Research Establishment. But their name is also gone. It's because of the earlier Grenfell Tower test conducted for Kingspan. They know they failed the test. Kingspan claimed they passed the test and they concealed the fact. So BRE reputation also is gone. So there are a lot of things that we have been looking at the UK as a model. It has changed. The whole world's perception now changed. Yes. We probably are doing better. I'm only talking about better than them. Not better than many other countries. Okay? We still got to review. We still got room for improvement. But you can see that what I do not like this test is that if you are trying to simulate fire propagation to the next floor, where is the opening? You need another window opening above. Then you can assess whether how fire spread leapfrog from floor to floor. But they only test the system, which is half realistic. So you remember what Professor Jose Torero talked about. Is your test relevant to the actual application? If not, it's useless. You spend so much money. The result you get is only good for this condition. You have a building, only have one window. Okay? And you trust your fire door. This is open market sampling conducted by CRIM. Fire door manufacturers spend 2 weeks or 3 weeks to make one door. Test, pass, they get a license, they go to fire authority to apply for the surat perakuan so they can market. After that, what happened? They go on listing. But CRIM only go to the factory twice a year. Now, I think once a year due to resources shortage. But normally before they go, they'll call the manufacturer. Okay, I'm coming next week. Manufacturer will prepare everything that you want to see. They want you to see. Behind, they got ISO. There are also manufacturers being caught fabricating the data for ISO submission. And this factory, I want to mention the name, is so naive. The guy that copied the data never changed, for 6 months having the same data. This door, there are 4 doors called up for test, all 60 minutes duration. Failure start from 15 minutes to 42. This is the longest lasting, but this is the worst because you see the fire burn right through the middle. Now why? It's because the prototype they sent in, the board that they use to make the door is come by 4 feet by 8 feet. So this door is only 3 by 7. So they cut, right? So there are remainder of the board. Then the boss will be looking, wow, so many remainders. What am I supposed to do with them? All these are money, I pay 4 by 8. I only sell 3 by 7. So all this is actually cut and then fit into subsequent production. So you got a door internally that is like jigsaw puzzle with a lot of gaps, but held together by 2 pieces of plywood. Fire started in the furnace within 3 minutes. Internally, the plywood is not burned, vaporized. Because I go to the back of the furnace, there is a window. You can see what happened to the inner surface of the door under test. So the moment the plywood goes, the inner core is exposed. If you got joints, fire will go through and burn the outside plywood. So when you pick a manufacturer, don't just pick on price. Make sure that you also get the QS to allow a testing sum. When they supply to your site, don't go to the factory. When they supply your site, take one and go to CRIM and test and see what happens. This one of the project architect worked with me. and Sirim, and we pick one of the doors, and they fail the test. So after that, remove all the doors from the project. Okay? Means of escape. We design looking at openings, looking at the distance, but we've forgotten. In a mass public assembling area like theaters and all that, how long do you think you can get up when you're sitting in the middle of the pack? You're sitting on the aisle, you get up first, right? You're right in the middle house. And one side is an old lady with a clutch. The other side is another wheelchair. Do you think you'll get up in time? What about the number of exit points? When people queue too long, what happens? They get impatient. So there are a lot of fire incidents, not the serious one. The stampede casualty rate is higher than the victim of the fire. Human behavior and element always missing. And we are actually directly opposite from UK. UK, they adopt stay put policy because they still believe that buildings that's built with compartmentation are so safe. If you've got a fire happen, it cannot spread. Everybody in UK is asked to stay in your apartment, lock up yourself, and wait for the firefighter to come and rescue you. They call stay put. In Grenfell Tower, there are residents who are actually evacuating. Firefighters came out and tell them, please go back and wait for rescue, and they died. So now this created so much hoo-ha in UK, said, look, you are actually following a policy that is only good for low-rise. And that has been practiced for also until now. You know how many decades? Any review? Any practical? When you do drills, you should look at the practicability. Yeah, we can do even CFD simulation now. With smoke, movement, FDS, things like that. Fire dynamic process and all that. Are we not learning from computer modeling? In Malaysia, we are doing the reverse. Hear the alarm bell, everybody get out. Sorry. Only 15% of people get out. The other 85% still stay around because the thing is a false alarm. Right? So you are actually following stay put policy. But to me, both models are no good. For high rise, we need to introduce a phased evacuation. Why do you want everybody to get up? Petronas Tower, every time they got a drill alarm, 4,000-5,000 people came all the way down. Of course, they are assisted by lift, but it's a waste of production time, isn't it? And many times it's actually a false alarm. Why can't we do phased evacuation by introducing emergency response program, emergency response planning, and then we must have emergency response team. Whenever there's an alarm, the team will go investigate. Meanwhile, make the announcement. There's an alarm. Wait for further instruction. The team will go investigate. If there's actual fire, evacuate the 10 floors above. That is more critical. The rest can still work until further notice. We need to improve. Because we're building so many high-rise. Who are managing all this? Nobody. What about a special group? Has anybody looked at how many people with disability are actually present in the building? You need to assembling them towards the fireman's lift, and they should be evacuated by lift. They cannot walk. UK government, you know, the minister say what? Oh, they cannot walk, let them crawl. Testimony in court, you know. Whole world is looking at this guy who is a minister and say something like that. What do you think? So inhuman, isn't it? Cannot walk, crawl. Huh? No, he's an ex-minister. Maybe his wife because he's an ex-minister. I don't know. But I look at some of this testimony. You look at their mentality and the way they talk. I'm thinking, somebody speak like that. Human to human. Don't help people, fine. But you cannot be so mean and so cold and so cruel. Yeah. Do you understand the life of people with disability? Do you know why this ramp is being built? When we conduct a seminar, fire safety seminar for people with disability, we specially build this ramp. So the speakers who are on wheelchair can access the stage easily. But after that, we get the architect to sit on the wheelchair and say, wheel yourself up here. Then they realize that it's so important, because you look at some of these ramps in shopping complex, even a healthy person cannot push the wheelchair up themselves. And you expect people with disability to do that. Experience yourself, you never know. But that day, you know what? They challenged me. Mr. Tay, you talk, you do. Not only I come out very easily, I can maneuver, I can spin the wheel. You see, how do you maneuver the wheelchair? It's not difficult. You have that in mind, you cannot put in the practice. And they are very surprised. The other thing is that they put a on somebody, please walk. Then the wheel. So how do I get people with what? And they are engineers, the fire direction alarm system in the building, and tell me I comply with all the Malaysian standards in every aspect. You can check. I said, but nobody will evacuate. You know why? That is the headquarters for the for the deaf. You got all the bells ringing. Who can hear? You understand what I'm saying? We cannot just stick to a code and standard and regulation and say, hope for the best. No. You got to look at the application at the end. It's no more standard and all that. No. Okay, so I think there are a lot of things that we need to actually look at, review. Let's review. And in China now, they are going a step ahead of us. Malaysia is the first country in the world to use lift for evacuation. Petronas Twin Tower and KL Tower. But we stay there. That's it. China now, all high-rise buildings above 30 meters must have lift for evacuation. They don't. It's not fireman's lift. Do you know Petronas Tower, how many lifts they have? Double-decker, 48 lifts. To cater for the assigned occupants in the building. All right. And they have this bridge linking. It's not for show. It breaks the tower into 44 floors. It's no more 88 floors. So people can, from tower 1, can come down from above, go across, and then evacuated by high-speed lift. So you see, they plan out, they have their evacuation program. They put a lot of thought inside there, because I attended their safety briefing many times. Every time our international president here, I'll bring him there to actually do a visit, and then Petronas will then throw us a tea party and then take us through their protection, their system, which is fantastic. They have vision, as I say, they have vision, all right? KL Tower, what do you think? Bungee jumping? You cannot walk down the staircase, because internally there is no air. Okay? The only thing is that KL Tower, they have a refuge floor at the base. When there's an alarm, everybody will assemble there and you'll be taken down by high-speed lift. Means of escape. How to get occupants out of the building alive during a fire incident. You cannot tell me that I got staircase, I got protected corridor, I got pressurization, everybody's going to get out. No. I will show you already this morning. Nobody leave. When there's a fire, everybody crowd around and take photo. Okay? So compartmentation, fire barriers are crucial, because you wanted to actually contain the fire or prevent fire propagation. And not just fire. I think smoke is more crucial. When you got a fire, you got an incomplete combustion, the smoke will be generated, and the air will be expanding. They'll be looking for gaps to escape from the room. And don't forget, smoke carries temperature. Particles coming out from the fire source is 250 degrees C. What is the water boiling temperature? 100. As they float along upwards, why? It's because they're heated particles. They have buoyancy effect. They are higher temperature than ambient air. That's why it floats upwards. And then it moves along in terms of a ceiling jet. But as it moves along, it cools, right? Because it radiates heat, it cools down, and then it comes back down. So when the engineer tell me, I will design 2 meters clear smoke level for egress, I said, oh, your smoke particle all intelligent, all stay at 2 meters. Totally complete lack of understanding. These are pure science that you study in school, secondary school. So I asked him, how long do you think your smoke can flow toward? He said 30 meters. I said, huh? What's the relevancy of 30 meters? What material is burning first? What is the heat release rate? Different material burn with different temperature, giving out different heat. And you are assuming all the smoke will flow to 30 meters. So I said, after that, what do you do? 2 meters, I assure you, you have a free haircut. Heat is here, your hair will be all gone. And you cannot survive because it's not 2 meters. Okay. 31 to 58, I think cannot finish the slide. Never mind. I will go as fast as possible. But I'm giving you a lot of my experience, okay? So, alternate and protected egress routes, they end limit, fire, smoke, and doors. We still do not have smoke doors in this country. Fire only. And look at all the signboard in all the buildings. It's so congested with all the information that is not necessary for evacuation. Agree or not? We package so many information. You got time to read? You can. By the time the file will be at the back. Okay? So do a very simple what they call layout and have directional route, arrow and all that to show people where to go. Don't just pack it with so many information and you draw so many lines, details, where is the what leaf and all that, AHU, all these are not necessary. You think we are very advanced. This photo was taken more than 10 years ago in China, Shenzhen. When I go there and visit one of the shopping complex, I go into the basement. You do not need to look at keluar sign. It's all embedded on the floor with arrow. All you have to do is follow the arrow, you escape from the building. But don't follow the discount for Levi jeans. You go somewhere else. Don't you think this is very much simpler? Look at that. Very easy. It's color green. So you know that anything is green is for egress. Okay. I put this on LinkedIn. I created so much interest. I said, legislatively, we are asked to put the keluar sign on top of the fire door at the highest point. Imagine this floor, this room is on fire. Do you think you can see the keluar sign? Then why are we still putting it at that position? Tell me. You want to think about it? Actually, this is at BRE, British Research Establishment, burning house, they call it. And actually, if you look, this is a fire escape door. There is actually a good sign there. So when the experiments start to run, you cannot see anything. Okay? In Norway, they already incorporate in the carpet of a hotel. If you go to Japan and Korea, they still put on the top of the door, but they run the word exit and with the arrow sign on the skirting level, illuminated. If you go to Osaka airport, go to Shenzhen airport in China, you go to a lot of international airport now, you can find it on the floor. No worries, permanently illuminated. Easy solution. You don't need a full-fledged fire escape staircase, right? At least as an alternate. And also to stop heat, smoke, fire propagation, use what I call a suspended ceiling that can absorb heat. Otherwise, all the heat will be reflected forward. To do that, the heat can be absorbed, then less heat is propagated forward. And talking about keluar sign, your EL emergency lighting is the same. We all put it in the ceiling. Can you see anything? It's so dim, Why are we putting it there where it's of no use to us? That's the thing. On the floor on fire, of course, somebody tell me, hey, I can still see the keluar sign. On the floor not on fire. I say, of course you can, but that's not what you need. You need that on the floor on fire, isn't it? And I still prefer this type because you hang it on the wall at the corner, you can then, it's actually lower and they are more powerful. These lights are more powerful and battery is bigger. So all this, secondly, when the chlorine sign is covered by smoke, they will be damaged because the smoke layer carries about 200 degrees C. These are plastic. They'll be burned. You don't have your chlorine sign. Don't use this as a fire stop. Huh? And how many people check extinguisher? Nobody. Human factors. 2 meters. Some of the youngsters, the generation now is about 1.9 and 1.8. How can you have a clear smoke height of 2 meters? You tell me? So I was looking at these engineers, I was thinking, are you kidding? I'm already 1.75. Even at my height, I cannot stand under the clear smoke height because they've forgotten you have radiant heat flux. You got actually a turbulence area. It's not, the smoke is not clear cut like that, no. They have a diffusion layer that is about 4 inches. So when you have minimum 2 meters, you have less than 2 meters. And this diffusion layer also contains poisonous gas and smoke particle, which is less, that's all. Yeah. So everybody talk about figures, but don't understand the philosophy and the fundamentals behind. If you go to Hong Kong, it's 2.5. And you need very high ceiling, okay, to actually look at the proper egress route design. If you talk about protected corridor, if you do 2 meters, I guarantee you a lot of fatalities. You might be thinking that people is going to crawl. You can't guarantee that. That's an assumption. A lot of people still run. Okay. 5 years ago, there's a fire in Abjai, in Thailand, in a discotheque. A lot of people die because they run. When they see the fire and the smoke, they run. They inhale. Okay. So these are experiences we encounter. So clear smoke height for egress, I think you have to look at temperature. And this is actually, you're looking at 100 degrees at 1.2 meters and 400 degrees at 2 meters. You need a fireman suit with self-contained breathing apparatus like them, the firefighters, to survive in this environment. And designer is talking about 2 meters clear height. I don't know. I rest my case. Okay. Some of the smoke level is very low. It's because they don't constantly travel at 2 meters. They're up and down, like wave, depending on the ventilation and all that. And a lot of the shopping complex, the taller the better, I must beat the other shopping complex. So they have a Christmas tree that's 3 floors up. 3 story, 2 story. You know how much heat flux? And nobody actually run away from the fire. You look at this guy, he's trying to put some water, and he is trying to stop somebody running towards the fire or taking the photo. Okay? Where is the back? There. Again, people are taking videos and all that. This happened in, is it Pavilion in Forest City? Did I show you this just now? This morning I show you already, yeah? Okay. Now I show you the video. So, reality and perception is heaven and hell. Okay? UK started to implement this, which Malaysia is still wondering. Okay, and I already got M&A consultant approach me. What am I supposed to do? Because now the apartment owners are not naive. They write and complain. I cannot hear the fire alarm in my bedroom. So the engineer said, how? I said, you got to go and measure the sound pressure level, you know. Okay, so what my personal experience is that I was staying in the Manchester hotel, refurbished. Holiday Inn. And I was packing to leave tomorrow morning, coming back to Malaysia, flying back to Malaysia. And about 10:30, I was thinking, what is this disturbing noise? And then I thought it's neighbors, what they call television, because it's a siren noise, okay? So I thought it's a police car siren. So I don't bother. Probably I said, hey, cannot be. The noise didn't change. You watch a movie, you change. So then I look up, then I find that this is a smoke detector incorporating an alarm. It's not playing. Is it playing? There's a flashing light and a siren. And this actually complies with our Malaysian standard whereby you need 75 dBA on the bedhead. Okay? It doesn't play. So can't have it. Okay? So again, human behavior, we are irrational, and most people do not respond to fire alarm. And egress speed differs for different groups. And a lot of them, they say, I don't see fire, I don't see smoke. There's no fire. So I think there should be a rethink about what we are always doing for the past 10 years, and we cannot improve, definitely. I'll show this part that's very interesting for architectural design. The window design will affect the fire size in the room and how the fire spread on the facade. Okay, this is through research. Because of the ventilation, the air coming in to support the fire and the hot gas going out. So if you design the window either horizontally or vertically, there is an impact. You see the difference? Assuming the window size is the same, same dimension, you put it vertically and horizontally, this fire is more ferocious. It allows free flow of air to support the combustion. Okay, well, the below diagram actually limits the number of air coming in, so the fire size is smaller. And if you look at the window size below, if you have a square window, the fire will be deflected from the building rather than frog leap from floor to floor. Okay, these are actual data taken from research. I will show you this. So looking at the green building index, it doesn't guarantee fire safety, because if you look at the K value, thermal initial value, you understand what I'm talking about. All right. Brick actually is a good conductor, bad insulator. Air is the best insulator because heat transmission is the least. But in between, you got plasterboard and polyurethane foam. And foam actually is good insulator, but bad fire safety material. All right, so when you look at a bit more about building material science, you understand what I'm talking about. And this is like a chimney, like what I say. And why should we all the time stick 900 mm vertical separation and 750 to prevent fire ingress from floor to floor? You can incorporate this design that is beautiful, and you don't have to care about your 900 or 750. Agree or not? The fire will not be leapfrogging from floor to floor, because any fire that comes out is all exposed. So you can actually have a very beautiful design, and yet you fulfill all the UVBL requirement. So can we design and build a safe habitat? Thank you.
On behalf of Pam, thank you very much for coming in here this morning. It's a pleasure to have everyone physically back into here again. All right. Okay, so thank you very much, and have a very good day.